with my music stuff. It'll be a complete disaster. Oh my goodness. Because then she shows my mom, and then all 70 episodes of me swearing and doing all this types of stuff.
Just for like, you know how you interview me on my birthday? On your birthday, we could interview your sister.
Yeah, no. That's no.
Yeah, I didn't even say your mom. No. I only said your sister. Because
they are one and the same. And now that this is live.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying, the minute she's, I can already see my mom watching all 70 episodes. Wait a minute, what are you doing on the internet?
Do they watch the
goodness. My sister dabbles, but yeah, my mom absolutely not. She will never see this ever. Are you kidding me? She would destroy me off the face of the planet.
Seriously? Okay.
Yeah, I'm swearing. My hair's all washed. She would. Oh yeah, no, like no. You don't know Mama Sto. Mama Sto, something else. Love you, Mama. If you ever see this, I love you. Like, God dang, like I promise.
Mama
and I'm sorry I said God. I didn't mean to say that. I mean it. My goodness. All right, everyone. Well, after that, welcome everyone. Episode 66 of Office Hours. We're back at it. Nora's on your, or probably on your left. I'm on your right. So, how are we doing today, Nora?
I'm good. I was telling you, I've been in meetings. Like, I'm on that like meeting adrenaline high because if I stop, I will stop. So,
right.
But I'm good. How are you doing, Sto?
Doing good. Hanging in there, one day at a time.
I'm excited about today's conversation. And yesterday was International Workers' Day. Today, the Writers Guild of America started their strike. And so this actually feels like a really appropriate conversation to have today, as you're watching this in real time, around what it means to be a working artist. Why is there a stigma around working artists? And how do we destigmatize the working artist stigma? Because you hear us, like, so you and I have talked about this so much, but there are so many ways to be in the music industry and to make it as an artist. And sometimes I think these like stigmas around success and wealth and fame and whatever work against us. And so that's kind of what we're getting into today. And I know it's something I get a lot of questions around. I'm sure you do too. So I'm excited about today's conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate anyone who's coming through, watching live, or whether you're watching in the future. Make sure you hit the like button if you like what you're hearing. Leave any comments below. This is it really is an important topic. I can't believe we haven't covered it sooner because I do feel like we see it, whether it's just in conversation or even with on social media. I feel like I see it at least like once a quarter or something like that. And so I think talking about it is important, as I feel like a lot of us are out here working, trying to provide for or investing in our creative careers. So I guess the best place to start is like, why do you think that there's a stigma even to begin with, especially now? Like, I think back then, maybe I could kind of understand given like the landscape and like how, there just wasn't as much visibility, I think, to the independent artist and what they do and deal with. But now it kind of baffles me when people make fun of artists that are working, because it's like, are we not all doing that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think even starting there, like, what do we mean by working artists? And it could be people who have day jobs or part-time jobs or side gigs, and music is in addition to that. Or it could be artists who are, making money through music, but they're not reaching those like millions and millions, and they're living a very like average life like the rest of us, right? It's not like superstardom. And I think that's the important thing, is like there can be levels and scale to what success looks like for artists. And the most important piece of it is giving yourself permission when you start to be like, what does success look like and feel like for me as a creative? Not who am I comparing myself to? Not can I get the most and the biggest and the, but for me, what feels good right now? And then how can I grow over time? And I think to your question, Sto, like the stigma comes, I mean, y'all know me, I'm gonna be like capitalism, because capitalism teaches us to only value the biggest and the most, and teaches us to really devalue labor. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's part of where the stigma comes from, that somewhere along the line, we got the message of if you're not doing music full time, whatever the fuck that means, you're not
There it
really,
is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
you haven't really made it. Or if you have to like actually work to pay your bills and, you know, you're like grinding to make music work for you, somehow you're not like good enough as an artist. And those things are just lies. Like none of that is true.
Right. Right. And I the two big things there are like comparing, because I think and I think a lot of, as artists, I know even I entered, you know, as an artist thinking like, all right, you know, first project coming up, we about to cook, and you know, we gonna see what happens. But like, you know, they're like, I expected a certain like trajectory, I guess, in my artistic career. And I feel like a lot of us enter the game thinking that, or enter artist stuff thinking that, but imagine having to work who would do such a thing. But I think we see other artists and we think, okay, this is what it's supposed to be like. And so if I'm not there within a certain amount of time, or I mean, some people think that it's supposed to happen instantly, then I might then I must not be an artist or something like that. Or like you said, the full-time thing. I think that's the craziest one of all, because it's like doing music full-time is like, that's really difficult to like get to that level, like where you're just doing that. I don't like, especially in the independent scene, like even if you're bigger or whatever, chances are you're doing something else on the side. And so when I feel like it usually comes from like these pseudo managers or whatever. They're like, if you're not grinding all the time, 27 hours, 10 days a week, like you must not be taking. And like that's the one that I don't like, when they say you're not taking it seriously if you're not doing it full time. And it's like that.
Not true.
It's not possible for a lot of us. And so to think that we're going to get there overnight at the drop of a hat, or that our careers are supposed to look a certain way, I think is just, I think that hurts kind of what we're trying to do here in the independent space.
Well, and it's also like a really out of touch way of thinking about it, right? Like if you are, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, if you're raising children, if you're caregiving
Right.
to an elder or community member, if you have to pay off student loans, if you are taking care of family, you know, like there's all these other kinds of labor that we do. We've talked about how like women bear the brunt of this a lot, because women traditionally are doing domestic and public sphere labor, and not all of that is recognized. Like there's all these, so there's a lot of privilege in being like, you got to grind 24/7 just on your music, and the other labor that you do is invalidated. I think that's part of the conversation, is we don't recognize how many of us are holding down multiple jobs, both like acknowledged and unacknowledged.
Right.
And so then to say that you're not working hard enough, or you're not serious enough, or you don't care enough, or whatever is not only a lie, it diminishes all the other work that you're doing, right? Like that,
Right.
none of that makes sense. And so I think as we talk about like this, the myth of the working, so I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is there's a lot of mythology around how people become successful, right? Like the myth of overnight success, the myth of I did it by myself, and so those two things in combination with each other create this idea that there's only one kind of success story in the industry. And that's not true. And when you think that that's the only success story that's possible for you, you close yourself off as an artist to all the other ways you can navigate this.
Right.
And so what I really hope that people take away from today's episode is that you actually get to choose what success looks like for you, and how, like, you don't have to be famous. You don't have to grind 24/7. You can actually get enough sleep if you want to, and still be a legitimately working artist. Like,
right. Isn't that the goal?
Right? Like, sleep and let people hear your music. Those two things can happen together. So
Exactly.
I think I'm rambling a little bit, but like that really is the big picture. And I think it's important to acknowledge like how much we get this message from all these different places. And so that's where I think that's why the narrative is so strong, and it's easy to like get caught up in it because we hear it in so many different ways from so many different places.
Right. And I honestly think you worded it perfectly, in saying that it's a cross between, like, again, the expectations that have been set from what we've seen, along with sometimes other, pressures from the outside. And the, oh my God, the overnight, that's what it was, the overnight success thing. And so, I think it's interesting because, it's not discussed a lot. Like, all of us are out here working, and I feel like this is one of the very few discussions, at least that I've seen, about, like, hey, as a creative, I'm working, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because, again, like, I guess I always take it from this other angle of, like, how are you going to invest in your career, or like, where are you getting these resources from to put into your career if you're not going to work on the other side of that? So yeah, it is always interesting to see the conversation, because it's like none of us are just musicians, or just creatives, or just writers. We do a lot of other stuff, and it's okay to like you said, to take pride in that as well.
Serial Sensei says, when I was in college, I knew this 2-person band who made a living just performing at colleges. It was the first time I'd seen somebody not huge make a way off of their music. And that's what we're talking about. Like, you can, if you decide for yourself what's important for you in the industry as a musician, you can decide what being successful looks like. And there's, again, I literally am now repeating myself, but, like, there's so many different ways to do it. And I think part of it is we're like, well, I've never heard of so-and-so, so they must not be successful. And that's not true. There are a gazillion artists that I've never heard of, that Sto, you've probably never heard of, that Billy over in wherever has never heard of. But those people are making it, and they're paying their bills, and they're making their music, and they're living their best life. And so part of that is making sure that the indicators of success that you have set for yourself are actually measuring what you want it to measure.
Mm-hmm. And I will always go on the whole, like, come on, I can't stand it when people are like, well, I haven't heard of so-and-so, so what does that mean? And it's like, I don't like to play it like this, but in a lot of cases, people haven't heard of you yet. You're not irrelevant. So, like, we have to, like, use our brains sometimes before we start saying stuff like that, because it's like Nora said, there are so many different ways now to make a living from music and to support yourself creatively. And so if you're able to find something that works for you specifically, like, sheesh, dive in. Like, I always would say to double down on that stuff, because it's like, yes, like, we're all about the music, and art is very important, but I think there's a lot of us out here that do want to diversify and try other things and experiment and all that jazz. So, whether it's a quote 9 to 5, or you're doing other things creatively, or whatever, like, that's okay. Like, being able to support your artist career, invest into that, like, you'll get those back, like, twofold down the line. And I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, so part of it, right? And I want to go back to what you said about, like, even your 9 to 5 doesn't have to be 9 to 5.
Exactly.
You can work part-time somewhere. You can literally create your entire life in the way that you want it to be. So one of the things, and this is from my own story, but I've seen it with artists too. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think sometimes we create,
yes, there it is,
as this, like, all or nothing binary, and it doesn't have to be that way. So you can start full-time working a day job, and the goal is to be a musician. And then, I mean, you're always a musician, right? But to be, like, a professional musician, whatever that means. And then you can start, as you're working in this music space, and you're getting gigs, or you're getting placements, or you're writing for people, or whatever it might be, you go from working 40 hours a week to working 35 hours a week. And then maybe you work 30 hours a week. And then maybe you work 20 hours a week. And you can gradually cut this down as the music builds up, so that you don't have to leave it all behind. Or you can work 35 hours, save that extra money, invest that extra money in music videos, or hiring a photographer or working with me in Sto or getting a PR agent or whatever it might be, or signing up for classes or putting your kid in daycare so you have time to go to the studio, or, you know, like all the different things you can use that money to invest in yourself rather than being like, oh, everyone's sleeping on me or whatever.
And it doesn't have to go directly into the music like you're saying. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's part of like recognizing that all the work that we do is interconnected. So maybe like for a long time, I kept a job because it gave me health insurance. I worked part-time at this nonprofit, collected my health, you know, got my health insurance while I was building up my consulting gig. And like,
right.
You know, like you can really decide what do you need in your life and where are the, especially in a world where we're seeing over and over and over again how much labor is disrespected. They're literally like, oh, AI can do your job, so
see ya.
Creativity, we're just gonna hire. Like that's literally part of the conversation that's happening now with like the writers' strike. So the more you can build that like life for yourself and take control of the things you can take control of, the more you're going to have long-term success, sustainability, dare I say, like happiness and ease of life.
Right.
So this conversation, y'all, really is about giving yourself permission to not worry about all the things that you've been told you should worry about in terms of what it means to be a legitimate artist. You're legitimate because you're an artist. Like, no, you can make art and no one will ever know that you made art and you are still an artist because it's not in the consumption of your art.
But I'm not verified. What am I going to do?
It's the creation of your art that matters. It's not the consumption of the creation.
Right. Crap. You had made such a good point and I was going to bounce off of it. I completely freaking forgot. Oh, ego is what I was going to throw in there. But yeah, let's get to the comment first. I don't think we put that up there. My bad. Also, a lot of these lesser known artists are tapping into the international market and getting money from overseas touring. Have we talked about that yet? I don't think we have. Yeah. Or like just internet, like the international market at large and stuff like that.
No, there's literally an entire world of
out there.
Artists. There's artists in countries that you probably can't even name who are popping, but you've just never thought about that country as a place for music.
Because you're too busy trying to get on a festival in New York City.
Like the world is huge, y'all. Like, yeah.
The only other part I was just gonna throw in is I have run into artists that say I don't want to get a job because like I don't want to get a second job because it makes me feel like I'm not a musician or an artist, and I get that. Like I like as a writer I struggled with that, but again, it's really not about like Nora said. It doesn't matter if you put out 5 albums one year and you put out no records for the next 5 years. You're still an artist. I feel like, you know, with some of this, it's like we also have to do what's best for us. Like, you know, I understand we all want to be successful artists and whatnot, but we also got to survive out here. And so, you know, trying to force yourself to grind yourself to dust with this music stuff, thinking I'm going to try to put out 12 records in a year and stuff like that. I'm not saying that's not possible, but, you know, I've watched artists do that, and that's not healthy either. Like that's, you know, as much as we all hate this damn system, there are ways to make it work for you so that it's not something where you're working this grueling ass job that you fucking hate, but it's something that can actually provide for you and provide for your music career at large too.
Which also reminds me, like, you can also take time off and come back. Like maybe you need to take 6 months.
You worded that way better than I did.
Take care of someone, or you need to go back to school, or you need to just work really hard in some like traditional spot to like pay some bill, you know, like whatever. That doesn't ever take away the fact that you are an artist, that you are a creative, that you are a creator first and foremost, but also that like this process has to be linear. You know, you step away, you come back in, like that's fine. And as long as you communicate with your audience, hey, here's why I'm leaving. Here's why I was gone. Here's what I like, right? You keep those channels of connection open with them, because that's the thing that matters, is not so much the music as it is the connection that you have with your fans, people relate and they understand and they care. And then when you come back, they're so excited for you, because who doesn't want a comeback story? Who doesn't like to see someone that they're invested in struggle and then come back on top? So I think that's the other piece, is people worry about, like, if I take a break or if I take a step back, like, oh, I'm going to lose all my follow. If you communicate, you won't at all. Or maybe you'll lose a few, right? Like, I'm not making promises, but
Right.
there's also something beneficial in being open and vulnerable and honest and telling that story, because your fans are also working. Like, this is, I think,
Right.
what people miss.
Right.
Your fans are also working, and not everyone wants the, like, churn up life and the, like, I'm jet setting at 3 a.m. in the morning and every city is new. Like, what? Like, we're grown. And so there's a place for that your audience will also relate to.
Yeah. And we've talked about this in so many different episodes, like, because we both, me and Nora, have run into artists that are usually like, well, who wants to hear about that? I'm an artist. They probably just want it. But no, it's always about the human element, because, again, your fans and supporters are dealing with some of the same things. And like, I've been talking about this a little bit myself, like on my account or whatever, is that, like, your casual fans, sometimes when they see other artists, you know, the bigger artists or whatever, and then they look at your accounts or whatever, they see, oh, they've got 5 times as many followers as I do. And I just saw them, you know, posting pictures of them performing in Houston. In some cases, they think you've already made it. They have no idea that you're out here working and doing all this other stuff, because you're afraid to put it out there because you think that they're going to take it. Oh, well, you must not be a serious artist. And I get that. I get that perspective. But you'll sooner see that those same fans are like, oh, dang, I didn't even realize you were out here like that, and still holding down a job, still taking care of family, still doing this, that, and the other. That you get respect from your fans by that type of stuff. They're not going to shun you or whatever. So, you know, and the only other thing I want to throw in is, we're not telling you to go out here and get 5 jobs and, you know, all this other jazz. We're just saying, put yourself in a position to where you can take care of yourself, but also invest in that career and make the progress that you want to see, versus feeling like you have to keep a reputation up or feeling like you have to fall into a stigma. Go.
Yeah, right. No. It's that. It's like, I think a lot of people feel like they have to perform being an artist rather than actually being an artist. Like, just be an artist and tell people the story of what you're going through. And sometimes when you get so caught up in the optics of it, it actually takes away from. You're like setting yourself up for failure. And I want to alley-oop this conversation. I think it's 2 episodes ago. So this is episode 66. I think it was episode 64 that we did about, like, the mystery artists.
Oh, the mystery brand. Yeah.
Like, the mystery brand doesn't help you at all. And so, because a lot of what we're talking about here is just sharing whatever it is you're dealing with. And a lot of you don't. And so breaking, like, you want to hide behind the mystery and you don't want to give away too much, and that backfires. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that chance to watch that episode, it's episode 64. I'm pretty sure.
You're right. I'll look it up. I'll add it in the description too.
Yeah, and we'll link it below. While you're there, make sure you subscribe, you hit the like button, all that good stuff. But I think this conversation ties into that conversation a lot, because what we're ultimately talking about is you can set your own terms, and the more authentic you are about it, the more your audience will connect. Because, again, you are an artist and you can be successful on your own terms, no matter how much or how little you're touring, selling, you know, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, the episode ties in perfectly, honestly. Yeah, 64. Make sure you check it out. I was just gonna say that I'm pretty sure both me and Nora, like, I'll go as far as to say, like, 50 to 60% of the artists that I've talked to, like, deal with that type of, like, how do I keep up this stigma, or not keep up the stigma, but this facade almost, because they're afraid to show what they're actually going through. And again, we're not saying, like, put it all out there, but, like, your fans will respect and relate to the fact that you're working and grinding just like they are. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with working. We're all out here doing that. None of us are like, I think some people really think the majority of artists are just out here just on a rooftop, just smoking blunts, women everywhere, or men, helicopters, flying in and out of concerts, going to desert islands and yachts. It doesn't work like that. Like, a lot of us are grinding to invest in our creative endeavors, and that's okay.
And I was talking to someone today and they were like, oh yeah, like so-and-so was like, oh, I made it by myself. And then it turned out they were like some famous person's like grandson. Like, I'm not anybody's granddaughter. That like
Right.
no open door. I know Sto, like you don't have, right? And so there's also that piece of it that I just want to acknowledge, that like a lot of what you're seeing, there's so many other connections behind the scenes that you're not seeing. So
Right.
someone else might have like nepotism cash and nepotism connections, but if you don't, there's no shame in working. There is no shame in having to hustle to be able to do the thing that you love. It shouldn't be that way. We should all be able to do this because we're like
good at it, or we enjoy it,
and our basic needs are met. So we shouldn't have to choose between like paying rent and recording a song. But this is America, and this is how it is for now. But I want to point that out, because that's where the comparison, like people will present a story, but it's not the true story. And
or
so
the entire story.
What we don't see, or the entire story. So we don't see that other stuff. And so if we're not privileged enough to have generational wealth or social capital or all these things, we got to work. And so so again, like if we question where does that stigma come from, it comes from like the elite and ruling class and wealth and capitalism that makes us feel guilty for having to work in a system that has forced us to work. So that's the episode. Like that's, y'all, really, that's the takeaway.
Oh, I thought you were closing it. I thought you were just saying that's the episode. That's it.
I mean, but like that really is the whole. I know your face was like, what? I was like, what did I say? That for me is what I hope you take away. That there is no shame, no stigma in making music and doing other things to support your making music the way that you want to make music. Like, that's not something doesn't make you less of an artist, doesn't make you less of a creative. It is all valid.
And the only last thing I'll throw in is, don't let your people in your corner talk you into like not supporting yourself or getting a job if you feel like that's something you need to do. I feel like I've run into some managers and A&Rs and stuff that are like, yeah, you're not doing it full time. And I'm just like, what? So if you have people in your corner that are talking like that, I might consider reevaluating who's in your corner, because you still have to survive out here. Like, I understand music is important and getting them numbers up is important, but you are still an artist if you're working. Like, and we're both me and Nora here are working.
We should do an episode on like good managers or an effective manager.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And again, like, y'all, we're not saying like all of this conversation, like you should still have a strategy, still have a plan, like,
right.
But foundationally, if you decide, you know what, I still need to work 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week, that doesn't diminish your artistry in any way. And then you can build a strategy that takes that into consideration, rather than pretending that you don't have 25 million other responsibilities while you're also trying to do these things, right? The more you can be cohesive and accepting of like, look, this is the situation, the more you can be responsive to the needs of that situation. And then you'll be more effective, and then you'll be more successful.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. I like this. This was a fantastic episode. I like it when we talk about topics like these that I just feel like just aren't covered enough for some reason. But seriously, down below, let us know what you think. I mean, seriously, let us know if you're working out here. Again, both me and Nora, I know I'm at least working towards my creative endeavors. I know Nora's doing the same. Like, it's not, you don't just instantly, land into superstardom and all this other stuff. We unfortunately got to work to get there. So let us know what you're doing to get where you're trying to progress in your career. always give us ideas or topics that you want us to cover. I ain't gonna front. I feel like we've been on a roll episode topic wise.
I know we've got some good ones coming up.
Yeah, we actually do. We do have some good ones coming up. And again, we appreciate your support. I think we already announced it, but we did hit 600 subscribers. Honestly, thank you all so much for subscribing. I keep saying it. I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams we would have hit this. We're less than 400 away from 1,000, which is kind of insane. And so honestly, thank you for your support. Thank you for liking, for commenting, and for getting involved with us. It means more than you know. But make sure you join us next week, I want to say Thursday on Twitter. For Spaces, and we will see you all soon. Nora, what you got to close this out?
Drink some water, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Remember, music business is a marathon, not a sprint, and we'll see you next time. Bye, friends.